And then, like, you see that scene from the trailer where, like, Katara is bending water and she accidentally bends it back at Sokka, and Sokka's covered by ice, and, they're taking, and then, you know, they, they run through, they don't run through the part in the episode where, like, Katara, fakes, earthbending, so she's taken to, the prison where earthbenders kept. In the movie, they changed it to, like, any person who can bend. But what they do here, instead of taking them to a metal oil rig, they just take them to this close campsite. And I'm going, like, they just missed the point of, like, of why they took them to an oil rig in the middle of the ocean. Like, it's made of metal, and only, like, the greatest earthbenders could bend metal. And like Toph, even though she's, like, great, it took her, like, hours until she finally got metal bending. And in the movie, they take them to a campsite, and they're surrounded by rock. So I'm just going, like, they just messed this up. Like, they messed up the point of getting them to an oil rig. And then, this is the part when they're taken to the camp, they're not even given, like, a few minutes to be in the camp. They just go straight into the inspiring speech that Katara gives, but it's not Katara who does it. It's Aang, or Ong. It's Ong now, and they get into the fight, and of course, like, the earthbender, the firebenders are easily beaten. Why? Because they're in a camp surrounded by rock when they should have been on a metal oil rig. And there's actually a funny scene in here where, like, there's these 5 earthbenders in like this little structure, and they're doing this, like, this complicated, like, earth bending move, and you expect, like, huge rocks to shoot out, but instead only, like, one rock flies. Like, the rock as big as this, it flies at them. That was it. That was funny. And after that, they skip over episode 7 and 8. So you don't see Avatar Roku, which is a disappointment, but they kept his dragon, which is weird. And they skipped over, actually no, they didn't skip over the waterbending scroll, but the waterbending scroll also got butt fucked. I mean, like, how they did it at the end of like the uprising, when the earthbenders beat the firebenders, or they go to this safe where, like, they kept in all the stuff needed for bending. They open it and they take out a scroll and give it to Katara. It's like, and she's kind of like, oh, it's a waterbending scroll. This is rare. That was it. And it also puzzles me that they kept that episode when they could have just skipped it. They could have just skipped the waterbending scroll. I mean, honestly, they could have just skipped any scene of, like, Katara teaching Aang how to waterbend. They could have just, like, skipped all of that, because Aang doesn't really learn waterbending until they reach the North Pole in the movie. So, like, what was the point? And after that, they skipped Jet, and I don't really care that they skipped Jet. They skipped the Great Divide, which was really good. They skipped the storm, but they actually keep in a lot of plot points from the storm, like the scene where Zuko's backstory is explained. They kept that in, but how they did it, I'm kind of not happy about it. I mean, it was okay, but they could have done better. What they did was, Zuko, he's at a bar with his a restaurant with his uncle, and his uncle, they actually turned Iroh into kind of a creep, where he's kind of like, Zuko, there's a lot of pretty girls here, and then, like, Zuko is like, so, uncle? And Iroh goes like, well, you could have a life here. You could forget about catching the Avatar. And That's actually my Filipino voice, alright. So Zuko goes, well, if you do I have to explain why I have to capture the Avatar again? You boy, come over here. And then this boy goes up to Zuko, and then he's like, what? And then Zuko goes, do you remember the son of the Fire Lord? And he's like, he was banished from the prince. He was banished by his dad. And then you go to this flashback where like Zuko and the boy are like they exchange dialogue, and the dialogue they're exchanging is like explaining the scene where like Zuko gets hit with does the Agni Kai with his father. I mean, yeah, it's okay, but then it was kind of awkward. Like, why did Zuko just randomly pick somebody in the restaurant to have this conversation with? That's a little weird. I liked it better in the storm, like where Iroh was explaining it to the crew who didn't know Zuko's roots, Zuko's backstory. That actually made more sense. They didn't know, but then when they're actually talking about it, it's kind of like they're gossiping. That's what they're doing. They're gossiping. Anyways, keep going on. The Blue Spirit. Oh shoot, Blue Spirit. How they did this scene, this episode, I don't really know why they kept this episode in here too. Anyways, how they did it was Aang is worried. Aang is really worried that all the Airbenders are dead. So he leaves Katara and Sokka and goes to the Northern Air Temple, which I actually thought they were gonna do the Northern Air Temple episode, but they kind of didn't. I mean, they kind of alluded to it by like having these like construction bridges there, but they didn't really have like a Teo or his dad. So he's at the Northern Air Temple, and he comes up to this random guy, and he's like, "You're the Avatar. I'm so happy that I've lived this long to see this day." And then like, so this random guy takes him into the room with all the statues of the past avatars, and of course it's a trap. So Aang is taken prisoner, you know, in that scene from the Blue Spirit, and they kind of follow up the episode, and then after they do after Zuko gets Ong out, they get into the fight, and this is where you notice the fight scenes are a little boring, because if they're not doing like hand-to-hand martial arts combat, they're bending battling, and the bending battles are terrible. Oh, okay, not terrible, but they're boring. They're moving so slowly, and then the elements they're moving are slowly moving. I don't know. I kind of don't want to complain about that, because like maybe they did the best they could, but like it was just boring, the fight scenes. I mean, when you compare it to the show was fast paced. Here it's just slow and sluggish. They'd be going like, and yeah, and then the editing here was also really bad. I mean, like there's just like when Ong and Zuko are fighting, they split, and Ong is in like this little like this area of the place that is surrounded by like columns, and then he's like airbending the columns to like shut and open. So like he's like, when they're about to enter the column, he shuts that column closed. And then like in the next shot, he's on the edge of a cliff. And you're just going, wait a minute, he was in the center of that one place. How did he get there? I mean, he could have gotten there easily, but there was no transition from that. And then apparently the Fire Nation just like randomly puts up sticks, like when there's a cliff, because Ong starts doing that thing where like there's like a bunch of sticks, and you're like you see like martial artists just like walking on the sticks. Like apparently the Fire Nation does that for some reason. And then rest of the episode, they follow it up. And, man, you can already tell they just rushed through this movie, just how I'm explaining it. They skipped through the fortune teller, which was okay. And Bado of the Water Tribe. And the Deserter. And the Northern Air Temple. And then you get to the last 3 episodes.